Good morning, everybody. Mestre Sukuri, Capoeira Zoador, Tokyo. This week's video is, I hope, a little helpful. You know, I'm always trying to share my knowledge and a little bit of experience. Not that it has more value than other people. Just, I feel with so much access to information that putting my 2 cents in might be a little bit helpful and give people something to balance out some of the information that's coming out. Okay. Today's topic is something I thought was really interesting at first. So, good morning coffee, everybody. A student asked me last week, said, "Oh, Mestre, when you want somebody else to sing, you say, pusha, pusha, leva, leva." And I thought it was interesting. I know that he said another person had told him that was the tradition of capoeira. And that's what really made me think for a second. I said to him, be very careful what you think tradition in capoeira means. Tradition is actually, let's think about this in the capoeira world. Up until about 100 years ago, there were very different places that capoeira was growing and evolving. And even, for example, Bahia, because today we have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all these different things that communicate information across great distances within seconds. I make this video, somebody can see it in Germany, easy. That didn't exist. Information was basically limited to what was something within walking or horse distance. You know, so think about that really 100 years ago. So what we did here in this maybe neighborhood wasn't what other people did in other neighborhood. And capoeira, which for me has always been something that's constantly evolving, constantly changing and constantly adding elements to become better and better and more beautiful every day, we have to think about the word tradition. What is tradition in capoeira? First of all, tradition is really something that has, let's say, 3 generations. For example, my mestre, or this mestre showed me something, and I do, and my students do. So that becomes, I guess, the easiest way to understand what a tradition is. When people hold on to traditions and say, for example, this is the way it is, I think we need to be very careful and understand that's not the way it is. It's the way it is for that person, for that particular school, for that particular mastery, for that particular style. It doesn't mean it's a tradition of capoeira. It's one tradition in capoeira versus a tradition of capoeira. Does that make sense? For example, in my academia, in my roda, we respect a lot the dono da roda and the pé do birimbau. Dono da roda is the person who controls the roda, or dona. And I give my students opportunities to be dono or dona da roda as a tradition in my Capoeira Zoador Academy. Why? So people can learn the value, but also not be afraid when the time comes to be ready to take their position at that. So, is this a tradition? I guess for me, in my group, it's starting to become a tradition. The several masters I trained with and what I did in my life of capoeira, we don't stand in front of the birimbau. Because for capoeira, birimbau is the sacred instrument. I respect it so much that I feel so small in front of the birimbau. So we don't stand in front of the birimbau or give our back to the birimbau or cross the birimbau. This is a tradition that I learned from different places. Other places didn't do it. But my students know not to do it. So it's become a tradition of Capoeira Zoador Academy here in Tokyo. So tradition becomes something that we learn once, then pass it on, and those people do. So let's say that's a tradition. But are there any traditions of capoeira? let's talk about some popular traditions that I've seen no matter where I go. Europe, Brazil, United States, parts of Asia. For example, when you finish the roda, you shake hands before and after. This shows that you're doing something that you're saying, I'm here, I'm aware of you, let's shake hands, let's keep it good, go in, go out. That's, let's say, a popular tradition. Bowing is not a tradition of capoeira. I've seen it a lot in Asia because it's a reflex action that a lot of people do. Personally, I don't like it because it adds a different feeling if you bow. It changes the cultural dynamic of the roda if people start bowing and not looking for them. So we disconnect from the capoeira world and add something that's different. So I'm not saying it's rude to bow before or after the roda, but once the capoeira roda has started, I prefer to keep the Brazilian cultural side involved in it. And for example, bowing and talking too much at the roda when you're supposed to be paying attention is something that I try not to do in my rodas. Humans are people, people are humans. So they're going to do things and they're going to think how things are important for them. So what's another popular tradition? People use the birimbau, they lower it to start the game. They bring it up they lower it to also, the next couple of people. So what's a tradition? Popular traditions are things we see that are generally at every roda, Volta do Mundo. And then personal traditions or group traditions are things that are done within your group. For example, a certain rhythm is played for the certain game, a certain gesture, a certain thing. Good or bad, we have to divide what's a tradition for your school, for your lineage, and what's a tradition for capoeira or popular etiquette. This could take us on a completely different thing. So let's say a popular tradition a lot of times is popular etiquette. Yeah? So I hope this helps a little bit to understand what traditions in capoeira are. Remember, the traditions of your group, of your school, of your mastery, of what you think should do, and then the traditions or popular etiquette of capoeira. It's not bad, but I think it's easier so that people don't feel confused in understanding the traditions of capoeira. I hope this video helps. Ashe.